My name is Ken Miracle or Hau Hyo, where the sky meets the water. My clan is the Wenhega or Deer, and I'm from the Cayuga Nation, base keeper of Lower Cayuga Longhouse, and it's our custom that we do an opening. But what we call our opening is something that comes before everything else, and I'll be doing it in Cayuga. So it'll just take a few minutes, and so here we go. Dananda nyowe hewat ni shrinas yagan go da swato sios kai hoint go hawado danenga anga kwayado hiktok sen hyo ya go jide handro sagwayadi so nega sagwawi yongo ya ndak kunung kwafra nega gando dan really got to gena sanio ngoyadok sukta nega na haweo sagwawi gane kwio ongo hoy ne hoyananto ne hindoi hokanto sagwayadi so song bawi guna honyok ne ne away saskano panotonyo ne di nendwe he ki Scotland doya hagot na goha Scotland wala no honyo ne tugani on nega hagot na goha nega net bud banayat sa hawanzade Dwano hot that when hong kwa neg wato sa nye hot ne di nendwe he ki Scotland doya hagot na goha Scotland wala no honyo ne tugani on nega hagot na goha nega net bud banayat oi hogwe go hadi oi anoni hoi wa kasangwa hondo nyok tats nega sa na hawayanan he nega gugato sagoi hon to ga kwent to net ko hadi wano de getse ti so di no hong kwa nega kai point ko hot na go nos hadi havis ne ase honon ya gets nega nye danyo ki hanido no wabdanyo ne ti ne hanot stat tahdo yo to nanto wanzage negi ni scano na doge nega nega doga ni to dia sa di sagoi hon ne di ne de way no ni diet no honyo e ga kwent to net ko hadi wano de getse ti so diet no hong kwa ne to ga ni to nega go na go ha nega net bud banayat e de ka kwa gates so sket to go us it rut to sub no hong kwa nega na hawe o to a te talk sa how zade nega ni gwat higa de go to ne ha go yo de gosta nega ni go doga ni toya sa ni hawai hon ne di ne de way no ni the sub no honyo e de ka kwa gates so sket to go us it rut to sub no hong kwa e to ga ni to nega go na go ha nega net bud manayat so heka hod ni da ti so di ti no kwa ne ni o de da nyo sa ho do so go hon ne ni wa ne ni dok ta gis te de way ai ne ne wat ni dok tak ne yogana jastok se ni got kais to honge go ya de gosta ne goto yogana gwa ha ge sa so o de de honge ne het ni to go to honge sa ho de yo nan to wan zage nega nega doga ni toya sa ni hawai hon ne di ne de way no ni diet in hon yo so he ka wat ni da ti so diet in hon kwa ni to ga ni on to nega got go ha nega ned bud banayat on ji sondasha asti so diet in hon kwa nega ga white go hot nega no se hadi hawis ne azi hon ya gates nega ni da Ganya dainyo ki handiro otnimo dinyo ne hat to tawde hoya to nanta wanzage nega doga ni toya sa nega ha on jishunda sha ti so de no hon kwa ne di ne de way no ni sa nega ha on jishunda sha ti so de no hon kwa ne to ganyo to nega go ne go ha nega nedwud manayat how nigga house no ha is ne do so high white twat sa nya so gwaya ha ko ha do ho wan pedi no ge nega ne wa do so do gwanas kana la yo nega ne high wa is ni ho ai ho ne so gwai di so do gwa ni yo shoge ni ho yagan dak ne di ne tatwa za ne tos ne zung hi yo sa tawazali so gwai di so ne di ne de do ya no ni de so no ho nyo so do gwanas kana la yo ne to ga ni to nega gwa ne go ho nega nedwud banayat ke no godage hodi yakyono dio kiandido ne ti ne gani kwe gwego gai point go hodi de gwaiso ne di ne de doyano ni det in honyo ke no godage hodi yakyono dio kiandido ne to gani to nega go ne go ha nega nedwud banayat how ha ge go hidi handro so gwai di so Nego Chenonia, the Totosado, Ne Skanoid Vanotonio, Nega Neho Hadi when they Vishage, go Hidi Handro, Sagwaydiso, Nadine, the way you know this Nonios, how Hage, go Hidi Handro, Sagwaydiso, Netugani and Toknega, what they go. Donnie and Duatrowi, Konig with the Gusto, Ne Agashoni, Ne Goswenta, and Nega, Ne Agatai, Ne Agatai, Ne Goswenta, Aguego, Nitugani and Toknega, Agwanagoha. Donato, Nagachque, Nihiga, Kayagastak, Konahoyo, Donito. So this is the beginning of what we're here for. We're making this wampum belt for Hull University in the UK, and it's an agreement that the Haudenosaunee done with the British when they first come here. But there was a series of nations that come before the British. There was first ones that were come over was the Netherlands. They come here, and we made agreements. Same thing, friendship. Because when you first meet somebody, you acquire this friendship. So this is agreement that we thought we should. Our ancestors, the chiefs and clan mothers, decided that this is should protect the unborn faces, that we would live in peace and friendship with one another. And so what I'm going to construct here, it's like symbols. All of these belts that was looked at here, they all have symbols. And this is symbols that the peacemaker left us. And it deals with the Great Law. Many of these belts were before European contact. So our people live by this law we call the law of the land. And so we figured, well, this law that we're going to agree with, we have a constitution. So this is what it talks about, all that we call our law of the universe, because it existed and there was peace here. Because before our peacemaker come, there was no peace. So there was a lot of warring and killing. So the peacemaker come to stop that. And so this is why we have this, for the unborn faces. And so when our white brother came, he says that we will form a friendship with one another. And that our white brother says we should make it of iron. And our people talked about the tarnishing of metal. And so we should make it of silver. So even though we have a straight line here, there's symbols of links here of silver. And the reason why they made it silver is that from time to time our ancestors will polish that, bring back the words of our ancestors as time goes on. And so he says if it does come to that, when we make a new repolish our words, we'll dress as our ancestors did. So I don't think this has ever been done, which maybe in the future it'll happen, because a lot of times good things takes time, and it just don't happen like that. But if our people get together, well, maybe this can be done. So as I'm going along, this is of glass, but it comes from the shell we call a quahog shell. It's in the east coast from Newfoundland all the way to past Long Island into South Carolina and North Carolina. You'll find this. It's an ocean shell, and so our people took that and cut these beads. And of course, are the first beads that our ancestors did, we used with Stone Age tools. So we were using a lot of flint. And when the Dutch come, they seen the value that we put in this, And the first peoples that come here used it as money to pay land taxes and all that. But ours, as you can see all these symbols that, and there's a story to each belt. So when we say Goswenta, because in the opening I said Goswenta, so Goswenta means that something that's laid down marking an event. So each, as you can see, it's like a book. They're connected, and it's a long story. And if you start with a long story of our great law and how it come about, it's like 9 days to do that, and that's in our language too. Like our language compared to English language is like 10 to 1. So if you listen to 1 hour of our language, you'd have to have 10 times that, because our language is all very descriptive. So we can take something long and stretch it into a very short. And it's a lot of memory. And our people they use those as a memory tool. A lot of our things that we use is, like for example, the friendship, like if I take these two belts, the friendship belt and our 2-row, that's 9 hours, just those 2 belts in our language. So you can imagine this is I guess a drop in a bucket, how many belts does exist. There's like over 400 belts that exist. And you can see there's various sizes, and some are very complicated, and some are very simple, like the 2-row, that's very simple design. But these 2 belts, the friendship and that 2-row, go hand in hand, because this is a belt we done first with the friendship, and then we go to the 2-row, stating our laws, that we won't interfere with one another. We will go in our canoe and our white brother ship going up this river, and that we will not interfere with one another's laws, because there's laws and language and traditions in each of our vessels. So this is where them 3 links come in: peace, friendship, and trust. Well, that's what our vessels are surrounded by. That's why there's 3 rows, and then a double row, and then 3 rows, and then 3 rows again. So that each line there, road, stands for peace, friendship, trust. Peace, friendship, trust. Peace, friendship, trust. So you can see the connection here from them symbolic, I guess, laws that it still stands today. That's why we done this. The opening stresses that, I guess, out in the universe, the trees, the water, everything is connected. And this is what we should look after for our coming phases. Looking after the water, make sure that we don't pollute the water, and we look after the forest, and for the birds, because the birds, animals, they all exist in there. So these are simple design. It's a beading concept of under and over. And as I'm going along, I'll be explaining and talking a little more about how involved it is and how tedious it is to construct a belt. And what I have here is a master. You have to go by that, because you can see that you make one mistake and you have to go back. And so this is what we go by. I have a master here that took a picture of this belt and then laminated it and then numbered it, how many beads in between. And so this is what I'll be doing now physically, finishing this belt. I got one figure there to do. So that's what I'll be doing now. I'll be finishing this belt. Of course, we have modern tools. Our ancestors. Could you imagine our ancestors didn't have any of this, and how they made these things, unbelievable things. that they were so very crafty. So at the beginning, these were using buckskin here. This was a buckskin on the that you sewed it onto, and we use deer tendons for, like, now this is just a nylon, but our ancestors used deer tendons because deer tendons is made up the same way as the string. It's got, if you took this apart, there's like hair. See, you can see it on the end there, thousands of hairs, and they waxed that, and that's how those belts, like today, these belts like are that are held by custodians. They're held like at Onondaga. They would be in New York State. That's our homeland, and they're custodians of these certain belts. And here at Grand River, because when the split happened in Upper New York State, because some sided with the Long Knives, our Americans, and then we sided with the British. So Joseph Brant and all of the nations sided with the British, and so there was that split. So that they kept half the belts there, and we divided the belts, and then we brought I think there was 54 that we brought here to Grand River. So now we just put it on, and this is where it's not so easy. Like people think that, when you see this, it's just a bunch of beads. Yeah, it's a bunch of beads, but there's so many like stuff like that. So you really got to watch.
Hold that up again.
You have
Just hold that there.
cracked, split on the end, and so if your first row is that length and your last row is that length, you can your belt will come out right. So now we have to go by that, so we got to go one less, so that's 5. So there's a lot of extra thinking in here. Then now under, you just put it under and just use your finger and push it in. And then now you'll come under, and then you'll go over the bead. And anybody that does crafts or anybody that does art, you're in a world all by yourself. Your world. And it's so, I call them problem solvers, because when you're doing this, you're thinking of other things and how to make things better. And so a lot of times, if you have a problem and you go to your art, it helps you. It's very, to me, it's not work at all. When you immerse yourself into something that you're supposed to do, you've been ordained by the Creator to do it, and that happens. Beads fall off. That's still all right. And so at the same time, you're thinking as, because in our traditions, as you see, we have to remember a lot of things. So this helps. This helps of remembering, because our people still today, we don't have the books to talk about these things. It's all held in your head, and it's a lot to remember. But this is how we've been. Like I say, there's certain peoples that they're meant to do certain things in their life. And there are a few people that can do it all. Remember, sing, dance, and speaking. And this is what our elders have done over the centuries. They've picked certain people. They see that they're very good at remembering a lot of things, and they nurture them. They picked them out and put them on the spot. Because how many hundreds, maybe thousands of hours have I listened and learned this by listening. And I'm so thankful in modern times for I've taped them. They're all passed on now. There's only a few left that we can say that we would call elders. And pretty soon we're sitting around and now we're the elders. We have to pass it on. And this is why I do this. I don't do it for myself. I do it so other people can know what I know. Because I never grew up doing this or learning this. I felt it there's come a time in my life where I went out and got it. Took time out, even when I had a family, going out and learning, and even getting my sons and daughters involved in language. And so they know quite a bit. And my granddaughter, she's doing very well learning about languages, because, it's a lifetime. It starts when you're a small child. So now we get another string. And now this is how we add. Like, say you run out of string, this is how you add a string. Even the belts themselves, like the concept of doing these, traveling across the country, showing people how to do it, and you just put it in another row, and you bring it in, and so that string there will disappear, and you just wind it around so this locks it in, and you just pull it until that disappears in the bead. See, and I guess you do it. I've done this so many times. A lot of things of just by memory. I can do a lot of belts just on memory. So I guess this has been a job of Our Ladies. Because when they first made this belt, they were making this belt outside. And a lot of these things, it just didn't happen. It took days of negotiating, days of talking. And so this is how it is that our ancestors back then, there was no time, no day where you had to be at work at such a time. It was slowed down. Time is, they had the time to do these things. Although time has changed today, we still maintain what our ancestors did. That's what's hard. Not to me, but maybe some people think it's so hard to maintain our traditions, because when we have our ceremonies, it's all done in our language, and that's it's such a hard thing to uphold. See, now we got to go one more up. See, you're here, you got to follow your pattern. And I always tell my grandkids, when you're doing it, you're doing math, you're counting. It is math because it's all to do with numbers. So I guess, when we do our condolence ceremony, when we have the ceremony of doing this belt, like say we renew it, repolish the covenant chain, it's like a condolence ceremony. We take parts of our condolence, the way we stand up our chiefs, and then we just omit certain things, certain words in there, but it's all the same. So to bless this, we bless it with tobacco. We burn tobacco to put the words in here. And even though this is just glass, it's just glass, but the story is the same. Okay, now you're going to do a double. You're going to do 6, then you're going to do 2 more. And it's not for everybody. Not everybody has the patience. I guess you do have to have patience when you do this. And like I say, when you've been appointed by the Creator, it's natural, it's easy. And you kind of make a loop there like that and pull it. So your rows are just straight. And if you'll notice, you go down the belt, you'll know that not every is the same. That's why I say, if I made 1,000 of these belts, not one of them would be the same. Because I throw in shorter ones, you can see that they're not all even. And this is what it is. That's what makes, even though it's out of glass, it makes it look authentic. So now we're gonna have to make an in between. So 4. You need 2 purple, and then you're gonna have to put a white in between. Some of these belts take 70 hours, so you can imagine. Oh, see, I made a mistake there a little. I got to add another one and put 5. And as I say, even though you've done it for so many, you still make mistakes. But to see it in that one row instead of getting way over here, like say way over here, if you made a mistake way down there, that's going to be hard hard to fix. But there are ways to correct, even when you break a bead, because I've had people bring me belts that they've broken beads, and it can even be in a real belt. There is a way to put a bit, like say, if a bead broken here, I could break that bead and add another one in there and sew it in, and you'll never know that it's been broke. I've seen every problem possible making these tangles, and you name it. I've done it and seen it. So our ancestors had some similar a loom. You know, you take because these beads are wider, then you have to have a wider span. So you'll see here I've got another part here where the beads are smaller. Like these are not as long and fat. So I just, instead of making another loom, you just slap a piece on here and screw it to here, and you just cut these lines with a saw. So now we have to add his foot, his toe. You'll see here. You see how I got to follow that. And so that's got to be a little longer. See, if you're not sure, you can put your bead right up to it, and then there's got to be 3 white.
What's the longest belt in hours it's taking you?
That's 70 hours. That's the longest one. And out of reel, you know, that when I do, like say if I do a real belt out of the real shell, you'll see I got some strings here that are from the shell. Right here, there's a purple. And there's white there. You can even see better probably on a piece of wood like that. And they're made of other shell. There's conch shells. Because you'll see some belts made. See now, sometimes you'll get a bead like, see, you can see how it's got a scrape on it. I'll just take that right off. Because what you want to do is that you want to do it the best that you can do. Because through working, I learned these things from my boss. Certain things really stick in your head. See, now we'll just discard that bead. So one day I was making this die, and I went up to my boss and I asked him, I says, "Is this good enough?" And he didn't even look at it. He looked at me and he says, "Would you buy it?" The light bulb comes on, and I've taken those words in everything that I make today, whether it be a rattle, a wampum belt, or a feathered hat, or a cane. I ask myself, would I buy it? Because it's true, you know. It's got to be almost unblemished. But sometimes the blemish is in a certain place where it adds character to your whatever you're creating. And it's unique. And that, this quahog shell, that's the only one shell that has the purple in it. No other shell has that mark. Okay, so we gotta have 4, then 3 white. So every belt you see here has been the same process that's being blessed. And when our ancestors talked, their print is still on our old belts. They're still there. So when we pick it up, their spirit, it's still there. That's why we always say when we're doing our ceremonies and reading these belts, our ancestors are standing there with us.
What does it mean to you to have the University of Hull ask you to make this belt?
It means that I guess certain things happen. We don't even know why, but is it time? Is it the time that it's connected to something else? Like, would they have words that would get leaders waking them up to do this? You know what I mean? With because it's all about spirit. When we do things, we're even doing it for another purpose. There's a connection there that sometimes, even if you're someplace, you're there, you don't know why you're there, but all of a sudden it happens. You ask yourself, I'm supposed to be here. This is what I've been driven here to do. Maybe it's hard for people to realize that, but I think sometimes it makes it so powerful. Like when you're at a place and the question is answered, why you're there, it makes it more special. It's like we could have did this, but we could have did it at some place where, you know, the setting here is perfect because you're around the trees, you're around real wood created. It comes from a live tree. And it makes it more powerful. Because all these belts, they're so sacred to us. Like everything that surrounds us. I guess that's why our ancestors, when our white brother first came to this land, it's like it was the Garden of Eden, because it's as if it was just created that day. Everything was fresh. The air, the water, everything. there wasn't one dead wood, you would say, in the forest. It was all used. And when you come to think about it, about forest fires, that's how it starts. Because you have a lot of dead wood, dried wood, and it's just a mess in the forest because it's not being maintained by anyone. It's just let go. Because in the forest, the animals, the medicine, it's for everyone in that forest. And our people to enjoy. When we walk through the forest, we see all the beauty in the forest. Or wherever you walk, when something's maintained, it makes it all more special. And another thing is that you see the two colors, white and purple. The white stands for all the good things that surrounds us. We have peace and trust, respect, generosity, acts of kindness, and the glue, I guess, that holds all of that together is what we called our compassion. If you don't use it, there's not much good in it even existing, because if we don't use it, nothing matters. So when we were talking about this, it still goes on. We have meetings. The chiefs meet once a month here at Onondaga Longhouse, and when we have a problem that involves all of our nations, that we go back to our ancestors, the land of our ancestors. At Onondaga, that's the central fire keepers. Because what I was holding at the beginning, this string here, it opens up council, and so they lay it on the table when the chiefs are in council, and so that means that they're gonna I guess thrash through problems. And if you look here, this is the circle, and that's the chiefs that are sitting in council, and that's the way they set today. It's a seating pattern of all our chiefs. On the top there you have Onondaga, Cayuga Nation here, from here, and then the Oneida. So we're sitting on opposite sides, and over there is the Mohawk, the Seneca and Mohawk. So they're overseers. They're sitting, the Onondagas are sitting on one side, and you can see Seneca and Mohawk on this side, Cayuga and Oneida on this side. So this is how them problems where the Mohawks are. We call it the well. So this is how that works. The problems are sent over across the fire to the Cayugas over here. And so when the Cayugas talk amongst themselves, we also have added nations, Tuscarora and Tudelo. They're seeding with them. And so they talk over this, what's been passed over to fire, because in the middle, that's the fire. It's a symbolic fire. It doesn't, like that, like this is a fire. We call it gajista. And so when we pass that over and it's passed, then they would say, Skaiwat Awado, that they agree with that, and then it goes to the Onondagas up here on the top, and then they thrash it out. And they're the ones that put the stamp on or seal, because the law has to grow with us through time. So it's not written in stone. What the peacemaker give us, it's supposed to live on, and the way it lives on is it changes around us. See, like today, did we ever think there'd be cars or other people from other places that we would have to live besides? And like I say, that's why we made these agreements with our white brothers, so we could live beside one another in peace. There wouldn't have to be no wars, because today we have those 3 laws in that circle, and of peace, power, righteousness. So when the peacemaker first come here, he gave us this, and we never heard of this, and so when we seen how it worked, we gravitated to it, and still today we're still running with it. We're still keeping what the words of our ancestors has given us, because when we say the power, what is power to us? Power to us is like, say you have a circle of people like that holding hands, and each one of them has peace in their heart, and it keeps on adding to everyone, and pretty soon all of them people standing in a circle have peace in their heart. That's the power. And the power or the righteousness, that when you have all of that in you, that you can travel any direction without being killed or being held captive, because that's the way it was before the law started. And this was how we added other nations. We added many, many other nations to do that for peace. This belt here is our belt in Upper New York State. This is what we call a Great Law Belt. So that's what that is standing on. And this tree is that tree right there. It's our tree. They call it the Skohiskoa, the tree that pierces the sky, and it's a white pine. And the reason why the peacemaker chose that is that each pine bough has 5 needles coming off of that, which stands for the 5 nation. And so that tree sits on top of this one. They're sitting on this, and there's a white mat that those chiefs are sitting on, and so you can see how it's all connected. You know, this belt, it sets on there, and that tree stands on that, and there's so many connections of, like you can see how many, you could sit here for hours and talk about this, and it would take days, months, weeks to really say everything. I done the opening for this before I started. So when we made this belt, they asked our people, who are the witnesses of this belt? Then that's when our people, in a few words, they have what way I can explain it is, as long as the sun shines, as long as the grass grows green at certain times of the year, and as long as the rivers are in motion, and as long as the earth, I guess the earth is in motion, that's how long the words would last. But it's way more involved than that. My friend from the Upper New York State, he's a very nice, very blessed speaker, and he always says that that's the Reader's Digest version, because really, to explain everything, they wouldn't leave anything out. Like when I done this opening, that's so short. When our ancestors first did that, it was 6 hours. That's almost a whole day. And so there was a whole process of doing something sacred. And what they would do is that they would, the other side would report. We reported, now you report. Or we have delegations of people sitting on the other side, and that, so they go through all of that. So the very first day is that we greet one another. It's a greeting, and we stand up and we shake hands first. And then after that, they eat, they feast. And then the next day, now they go through that whole thing about opening again, things that come before. And I guess our white brother was very, they wanted to just think that they're going to just come and sign something and it's going to be all over. Well, even today, that's what our people do. Anytime they have a gathering, that they have these delegation of people that travel, and they do their reporting, and the business doesn't come till later on, because it's sacred and important. And this belt is sacred. That belt is sacred. Everything here is sacred. And this is how we carry that on today. And so when we go through the earth, all the things that are on the earth, they're the witnesses, the trees, the birds, the eagle. And then we go, everything we finish on the earth, then we go up into the sky. That's why it's all been cataloged, and you can't make a mistake, because you're like stepping out of your door. You're on the grass, and as you're going into the forest, you're thinking everything. You come to the water, so you're going up into the sky, and you're the thunders, the sun, the moon, the stars, and I guess people that have come before us are spiritual leaders, and the last is our Creator. So we go through this whole process before we even start and burn tobacco for this. We set it aside and we burn tobacco and bless this with tobacco. Because, today they think that they're old and they don't mean nothing. But it's as if the day you made it, it's the same. It doesn't change. See, like I say, maybe what we're doing this for, there's somebody else is in control that's higher than us. So at the beginning, the Dutch came, we made this agreement with them. The French came, and we made this agreement with them. Then when the British came, we made it with them. But then after the British, it was made by the U.S., or we call them the Long Knives, and we made an also similar to them, and they're friendship belts, but made a little different. So now we have to add another one. But like I say, our chiefs and our clan mothers thought, I guess they talked that over about how we will make these agreements that I say, like, that would last forever. And you can see, the reason why is that when our ancestors first met our white brother, this is why we put this, what we call a black heart in here. But we're talking leadership now. Everybody was saying, when you first meet them, oh, I haven't got a black heart. But I says, yeah, well, but we're talking about your leadership. What has happened? You can see, I don't even have to tell you what has happened to our people since, today we have so much things that with land negotiations. There would not have to be land negotiations if things were done better. And our white brother did this. And so today we have our white brother with this pile of problems that's been created. So why has it been created? Because they didn't use that good thinking to live beside one another. This is why they made them belts, so we could live beside one another in that peace, friendship, and trust. And same way with the Turo. Our laws are there. So these two belts, like I say, they go hand in hand. If you see a Turo, there's always a friendship. Same right down the line from the Dutch, French, British, and the Long Knives in the U.S. And so this land was big enough for everyone to exist, and this is why this it exists, because the friendship, the Treaty of Friendship, and our people, the native people are with a white heart. And because up to today, we still have not broken any of these belts. And I guess through the in the U.S., they on here, what these belts are on, we call it treaty cloth. This material here, it's not something that you can go in any store and buy. They make it special. And they give it, so because of the Canandaigua Treaty, the George Washington belt, to say it exists, and this is what we will go by. We call it George Washington belt, and that they give it to just the territories in the U.S., that they give these treaty cloths to the nations. So they have piles of these treaty cloths, so this is what that stands for, about giving treaty cloths. Because at the beginning they gave gifts, like this belt here, we call 24 Nation. That's to do with the rope. And when our first brother first came, he tied his ship to the rock. And now they said all you have to do is pull on that rope, and they'll give us gifts. Like at the beginning, they were given blankets, and we never seen metal before. So they're metal pottery, or our metal pots and pails and axes. We never had axes before, so they were, from time to time, they would give those gifts, and they stopped because it got really expensive give these gifts to us. And like here, they gave us blankets at Six Nations, but then they start giving cheese and bread. So we still hold that. We still do it ourselves. So that there is a George Washington belt, the one with the long with figures on it, the all whole bunch of figures on it. That's the George Washington belt. So you can see in the middle, that's the Longhouse, and on the east, I guess the left side, that would be the Seneca, and on the other side, the little figure would be the Mohawk. And those other 13 are the 13 colonies. So that's to do with the British, because actually they're Britain, because they broke away and formed that union of 13 because the king was starving people out. So they formed a union for themselves, the 13 colonies. So when we have, like say, when we repolish that, it's treated like a condolence. So when we meet them, that I guess when you negotiate and people have traveled so far that when we do it for our chiefs, we always mention about how dust may have gotten in your eyes. So now what we will do, it's all to do with the eyes, ears, and throat. So that's what we do at condolence at the edge of the woods when we meet. And so also that what we will do is we will take the soft cloth and we will wipe the dust out of your ears or out of your eyes. And even your ears have become plugged. There's something that has caused this. And so we will take that obstruction out of your ears, and so you can hear us plainly. And also your throat. You may have, through your travels here, your throat, there could be something lodged in your throat. So what we will do is that we will give you this spring water that when you drink that, it will clear. So when you speak to us, everything will be plain when you talk. So that's part of that condolence ceremony when we meet. And now that we will greet one another, we have, you'd only have one, maybe not one negotiator, you would have many. So even on our side, you would have a main speaker, but you have many others that would introduce you. But when you do come, that we will, this is what we call hospitality. So what we are going to do when you get here, we are going to feed you. We are going to have a place for you to stay. And so we still use this, what we call the hospitality belt. And there's those three things again about peace, friendship, trust, even. So we use that. Because when we take peace, power, righteousness, you take those three words, and it's like the tree. When you see the tree, it branches out. There's many words, many things that branch off of each of those words. That's where those things of generosity and trust, and we're all equal in the eyes of the Creator. All the good things that the Creator has created you in the image of Himself. And so this is what we will use when you arrive here. We will look after you and feed you. And even if you need things to return home, that we will help you with that. And this belt here is always done. Even when somebody comes to your home, you feed them, you give them a drink or whatever to help them, welcome them. And so then we talk about this belt. Say if we're going to repolish that, this is what we're going to go through now. And then now we'll start, of course, the feasting comes first, So the next day we'll talk about it. And we'll put the words back in there. We'll bring them out because that's what our ancestors did from the past. All those 3 links that we will talk about. And we're talking probably a whole full day just talking about that. And we will bless it again. So they will take that with them, that blessing that they will take, and then there will come a time again, because when our leaders pass on and other leaders come in on both sides, the words have become old now, and now they've got to repolish that again. They repolish those words again, so you can see that this is going to happen. It should happen quite a few times, because different leaders, like we say, a chief may be sitting there, our chiefs anyway, until they're installed, until they pass on. So maybe we're talking some have sat there for 40, 50, some 60 years that have sat there. And to us, way our chiefs sit, that's not a paid position. They sit there because they believe in it.